With fall being right around the corner, it's time to start working on that autumn decor. And for me, sunflowers sell so much quicker and better than pumpkins. Hi, I'm Sylvia from Backyard Brushes in Fountain City, Wisconsin. And in today's video, I'm going to flip 3 items into decor featuring sunflowers. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's get creating. Project 1, I'm going to use this mirror that I picked up at the Goodwill. It had some really good bones, yet they did staple the hooks on top of some paper. So I ripped off the paper and I removed the staples, and I can always attach the hooks properly. I removed the mirror from the back of the mirror, or from the frame. And, well, let's not tell my husband, but yes, I do know where the cleaning products are, and I sprayed the mirror down really well. I just don't want him to know that, I know how to clean mirrors and windows. I know. Anyways, so I gave the mirror a really good cleaning before we started, and I also took the frame to the garage and I used the electric sander and I sanded it down very well. One of my favorite transfer books from IOD is the Painterly Florals. They just got such gorgeous sunflowers and some lavender and roses. So I cut out some of the transfers and I just started applying them to the mirror. And with the transfers, I just layered them on top of each other, starting with the background and working my way forward. And that's one of the things I love about these transfers, is how well that they layer and how easily they go on. And I'm actually almost out of transfers from this book, so it is not retired. So I do know that I can order more. And I'll probably have to put my order in sooner than later, considering I'll be using a lot of sunflowers this fall season. Once I start getting the transfers applied, I just make sure to use the back of the backing and varnish the transfers on. And this one, I really wasn't thinking. It's easier to look back now, but the rose probably should have been pointed up instead of down, but that's how I learn. And make sure to varnish it. I did cut off the one bloom off of this transfer, and what I did, which I actually didn't get on film, is once I got the sunflower applied, I rubbed on the third bloom on top of the sunflower, so it kind of was going for the effect that the sunflower was between the blooms or the stems of the roses. Also, when layering the transfers onto the mirror, once you take that backing off and you touch the mirror, that's where it's going. With wood or other items, painted items, you have a little bit more flexibility with moving that transfer around, but once that transfer sticks to the mirror, that's where you're going to apply it. So you have to be a little bit more selective when trying to decide where to put the transfer. And these transfers really did go on super easy. I don't think I had any problems at all, especially considering all the transfers that I used on this mirror. And I just love these sunflowers. They kind of got a little bit of a watercolor effect, but they're actually just really bold, bright, and vivid. So I'm just going to place that transfer down, rub it down, and then remove it. And actually, I don't know, I really love this transfer, and in the end, or a little bit later, you'll see where I kind of messed up part of the sunflower, but it still works. So just make sure to varnish them. Because they're on mirror, I do not have to spray or put a sealer on them. Now I'm using Rust-Oleum Mirror Effect, and make sure if you do this that you do it in a well-ventilated area. And I'm just spraying around the edges. I've never done this on top of a transfer before, and it did kind of tarnish or color the transfer. And now I'm just using vinegar and water. I think it's about a 50-50 mixture. I'm not positive, but I never really measure anything. And I'm just, I'm getting more of a stream than a mist from this bottle. I couldn't find my other bottles, so I just grabbed this one. So I'm just spraying that vinegar water on top of the mirror spray. And I'm going for kind of that faux oldish look on the mirror. And I'm just spraying some more. I get a little overzealous in some of these areas, and I kind of took out part of the edge of that sunflower up on the top left. And then I'm just going to use a paper towel, and I'm going to dab the edges. And it just gives that old faux mirror effect. Once I'm done dabbing the edges, I do let it dry overnight before I do anything else with it. And you can kind of see, it's hard to capture it on film, but you can see that effect going around the edges of the mirror, and you can see where I turned part of that beautiful sunflower silver. And it's hard for me to quit playing. I just want to oops, look, I just covered more of it because I can't stop. It's just kind of really fun to play with. And sometimes less is best, but yeah, one day I'll learn that lesson. But I just spray that vinegar water for a second layer, go over it with the paper towel, and it gives that cloudy old faux effect. And I know there's a name for it, I just can't think of it off the top of my head. So while my mirror is drying, I'm going to use crinoline by DIY, and I'm just going to give the wood frame, 2 good coats of the crinoline. Now, I just got my beeswax bar in the mail. I usually use the Vaseline method, but after watching Connie from the Painted Photographer, of course I had to try the wax. And it's so pretty. I don't know if you can see, but it's got this little bee image and everything on the bar. And it's like, it looks so pretty. I don't want to use it. So I went around the edges of the frame so that once I paint it, the paint won't adhere and I can scratch it off or sand it off. However, you're going to see later it didn't really work as well. Now, this is my first time using the Dixie Belle patina paints, and this is the iron. And I had to read the instructions, which I did. And I'm to use the iron paint, you give the product 2 good coats. First coat, you just, apply the first coat, let it dry. And then when you apply the second, or if you choose the third coat, so you can see the first coat doesn't give the best coverage, so I was a little worried. But I'm just giving it another coat, and then I let it dry, and I probably shouldn't have, but the instruction said 2 coats. And I sanded it down to get some of that crinoline behind I wanted some of the crinoline paint to show through. So now I am spraying the patina spray over the wet paint, and overnight I come back and I have this rusted looking frame, which was cool, but it wasn't exactly what I had in my mind. So I took the beeswax bar again over the frame, and I mixed up some avocado Sweet Pickens milk paint, half water, half paint, let it set for 20 minutes. And I'm just going to give the frame 2 coats of the avocado paint. And in between the coats, I'm going to give it a shot with the heat gun so that I can get, hopefully, some really good chippiness. And as it's dried, you can kind of see where the wax is underneath the avocado paint. So once it was dry, I just took the sander, my little finger sander, and I just went all the way around the frame. And I actually loved the effect I got. For the back of the frame, I had painted it also, because I always feel you should complete your projects. And I used Fusion Mineral Paint Antiquing Glaze for the back, so that it would hopefully kind of blend in with the front of my frame. And I adhered the mirror. And my project is done. And I forgot to show, I did seal it, the front, with DIY's Big Top. For project 2, I'm using this wood sign. I got a whole box of these for free. I got them off the curb, and yes, I took the whole box. Yes, I'm selfish. 2, I don't regret it. So I gave the sign, I sanded it down because I didn't want that navy from the blue showing through. And I actually, sorry, I got really off camera here. But I gave it 2 coats of the Crinoline by DIY after I'd sanded it down. Now I'm taking my Crackle stamp with the Sepia Archival ink, and I'm just stamping right across the wood board. And I just set this, I get the stamp all nice and juicy, and then I just lay it down on the board, press down firmly, and then I try to go straight up with the stamp, and I just do this all the way across the board. I use my heat gun to set the ink, and it just leaves this nice crackled looking background on my sign. I taped it off with painter's tape, and using the avocado Sweet Pickens milk paint, I again did 2 layers using the heat gun in between. And I also did the back side of the sign because it just makes it feel more complete. I then took the finger sander and I went around the edges, and it had some really good crackle, and I removed the paint. I'm going to use this sunflower napkin for this project, and I just put liquid patina on my fingers to get it kind of sticky, and I use that to separate the back of the napkins because I believe this one was like a 3-ply napkin. And I just peeled the backings off the napkin. I'll use the scissors to cut a square out, and I guess I have to play with it first, and you can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm using a scissors just to cut out 1 square of the napkin. And then I can put the napkins away for later, which is using napkins is a really affordable method for decoupaging. You can get a pack of napkins so cheap. And I believe I got these on Amazon, and I can put that link in the description. But for each napkin, you can get like 4 projects. So I'm just going to put the rest of the napkin away. And then using the wet method with a brush, I'm just going to go around the edges and remove them so that they're just not like a crisp, clean edge, and it'll blend into the sign a little better. I'm applying liquid patina as my decoupage medium. You can use whichever decoupage medium is your favorite. And I'm just going to go over the first quarter of the board with the liquid patina before I place the napkin down. Napkins are really fragile, so I try to have it all set up before I lay the napkin down. And I'm just going to place that sunflower on top of the liquid patina, and then using my fingers, I'm going to press it down into the medium and smoothing it out. Had I had wrinkles, I would have used the iron-on method to take the wrinkles out, but I didn't have the issues. Gave it another coat of top with liquid patina, went around the edges in an up and down motion with the finger sander, and applied another coat of liquid patina to make sure that it was fully adhered. Next, I taped down this little arrow stencil that I also got from Amazon, and I decided to try using the milk paint, and I just traced out my arrow and I gave it 2 coats of milk paint, just like I was painting the frame. And I did apply the heat gun in between to see if I could get some crackle in my arrow. And then I just gave it a second coat, more heat. I just have to be careful with the stencil when using the heat because I don't want to melt my stencil. So I gave it a second coat and then I just removed it. I had a little bit of bleeding, but very minimal. And I just used my finger sander gently. And I had some great crackle in my arrow, and it helped kind of blend it into the back of the board. Using IOD's farmhouse letters, I inked up my stamp and with the word sunflowers, well, without the first S, and I laid that down on top of the arrow and the napkin, and I just pressed firmly down once I decide where to place it. Make sure I press down on all the letters and lift up. I cleaned my stencils with a baby wipe, grabbed the S, inked it up again, and completed the word sunflowers for my sign. And where we live, we have a lot of sunflower, I don't know if they're called sunflower fields, where they're open to the public. The farmers plant a massive amount of sunflowers. The public's allowed to go in, and a lot of senior pictures are taken, family photos, friend photos. So I have a feeling the sign will sell rather quickly. I'm also using golden matte medium. Again, Connie from the Painted Photographer swears by this stuff that if you're going to seal with it, with any chance that it might get wet, this matte medium is thick, it's durable, and it will protect it. So being that it was a napkin and not sure who might buy this, I did give it a really good coat of the golden matte medium. It did work with the napkin, and it just gave it an extra layer of protection. And I made sure to cover the whole sign with that golden medium. For project 3, I'm using this I think it's 7-inch paintbrush. I was so excited to find this at the Restore for $1 this week. I'm going to mix up some Red Wagon Sweet Pickins milk paint using a 1:1 ratio. When you stir it up, you want it kind of like a thick milkshake. And I did sand the handle down with my finger sander first to get some of the varnish off of that handle before I applied the paint. And I just really loved the metal patina going on that brush. So I did cover up the metal with paint tape before I painted the handle, just to protect that patina from my sloppy painting. And I gave the handle 2 coats of the milk paint. I brushed some Alchemy Birch paint right on the bottom of the handle. I headed to my garage and I used my protective gear, and I used some fast drying amazing resin, and I mixed equal parts of A and B, stirred them together, and then I quickly put them in the mold, and it's the IOD sunflower mold. And the resin turns white as it dries, and it dries within like 10 or 15 minutes. So you kind of have to act quickly once you mix those, I don't even know what you call them, chemicals together. So you mix them really well, and then you just pour it right into the mold, and you wait about, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, but you can start seeing the white as it appears to set. So you can see here where it's turning white. So I went back in and I added red to the top of my paintbrush bristles while my mold was completely drying. I made a palette of paint using DIY White Swan, Summer Crush, Farm Fresh, Aviary, Queen Bee, Burlap, and weathered wood. I did have that butter with the DIY, but I never even used that one. And I just put some paint out on a paper plate, and I grabbed a small paintbrush, and starting with the weathered wood, and I mixed a little bit up with Summer Crush. I just painted the middle part of the sunflower, and I just dabbed that paint, and it's pretty easy to do considering the mold is so detailed. So I just used Summer Crush mixed with the weathered wood, and I painted inside that mold. I used a little bit of the burlap along the edging to give it a little bit of a highlight and to change the color up a little bit. Using DIY's Aviary, I just went through and I painted where the leaves are at the bottom of the base of the flower. I know there's a name for that portion of the flower, but I don't know it. If you do, you can let me know in the comments below though. And then once I got the green base on, I added some white just to lighten it up a little bit. However, it's fairly easy to paint just because of all the detail that is in the mold. So I just lightly brushed a little bit of that White Swan into the green to give it a little bit of texture, color, and highlights. Using Summer Crush by DIY, I started at the base of the petals and I just started bringing some of that color up into the petals. And I just went around the whole flower with this method. Using Queen Bee by DIY, I just started making my way up from the summer crush and up to the edge of the petals, blending that crush into the Queen Bee. Then using the white swan, I just gently brushed some highlights on top of the flower. On top of the petals, the green base, and also in the, is it called the stamen, the center of the flower? And I just gently added the white. And if you get too much white, that's an easy fix because you can just always go over it with some more color and tone it down a little bit. And then as you can see here, just adding that white really helps it pop out. Using a little bit of weathered wood and then the farm fresh, I painted my leaf, giving it a little bit of some dark tone and light tone, and also with my stem. And I did the same method. I used the white brush to give those a little bit of highlighted detail also. Then using that farm fresh, I just went right over and gave a little layer of the green paint as I'm working my colors way down the brush. And I'm doing the front side and the back side. After that dried, I used the Queen Bee and going down lower on the brush or the bristles, I added the Queen Bee and I added DIY's Big Top to my sunflower. And while that was drying, I added the Summer Crush to the very bottom of my brush. Using the hand sander, I sanded the wood handle of the brush, removed my painter's tape, and covered the handle and the patina and the bristles, because that paint also needs to be sealed with the Big Top. Using Type Bond and E6000, I glued my sunflower and my leaves right to the handle of the paintbrush and let it dry. I used DIY dark wax to darken up my handle and to seal it, and I just wiped it off with a paper towel. While it was drying, I cut a piece of lace. I wrapped the end with tape so I could get it through the handle, and I have a hanger for my paintbrush. And I would love to know which one of these projects was your favorite, and if you're also working on fall. If you found this video inspirational, please hit subscribe below and follow me along on my creative journey. Thank you.